Um, my name's Nick Bridgepole. I work for the Belfast Met in Business Development. Thank you very much for joining us on our final in our series of 6 on design thinking. Carlos Lacham will be presenting to you today. The presentation should run for about half an hour to 45 minutes. If you have any questions, do drop them in the chat and we will get to them at the end. Um, Other than that, I'd like to hand you over to my good friend Carlos Lacham.
Okay, cheers, Nick. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to the last of 6 in the Belfast Met Design Workshop webinar series, Putting It All Together, where we will review the design thinking process and all its stages, and then we will apply these to an imaginary product design project. And for anyone that needs to get in touch for more details on how Belfast Met can support your business, just email us at businessdevelopment@belfastmet.ac.uk or at E3_BelfastMet on Twitter. So firstly, again, let me introduce myself. My name is Carlos Lacham, and I've been involved with the many aspects of product development for over 20 years. I've been an engineer and a designer in the aerospace, the automotive, the medical, consumer product, and heavy equipment industries. I've headed design teams, as well as just being a cog in the development process in companies both large and small. I've managed projects from a few £100 to over £1 million. And regardless of the size of the project, I find the process of problem solving very satisfying, and I get a great feeling when I see people benefiting from the products I help to create. I'm currently a design consultant with Belfast Met, as well as running my own product development consultancy, Dark Red Design, based in Belfast. I would like to thank you for joining me today, and if you have any questions during the webinar, please put them into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them at the end if I can. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to start with, we ask this question: what is design? We find out it's the process of creating a plan or solution to a problem. We took some creativity, added some critical thinking, combined them to develop a concept, product, or service that meets specific needs and solves specific problems. Creativity involves generating new and innovative ideas, approaches, and perspective, and it's the ability to think outside the box and come up with unique and unconventional solutions. And critical thinking is the process of logically and systematically evaluating information, arguments, and evidence to make informed decisions. So in the design process, critical thinking is used to evaluate the feasibility and effectiveness of those creative ideas. So it helps you and me, designers, to assess the pros and cons of the different solutions and identify trade-offs and take the best course of action. So we learned where it was used, and it's referenced within a wide range of disciplines, including architecture, graphic, digital, and others. The process is often iterative, meaning there are multiple rounds of refinement and improvements, and it's about the designers working in a cyclical process to perfect their solution. And we found out that design is a critical aspect of innovation. It's essential for creating new and exciting products, services, and experiences that meet the needs and desires of your users and your customers. We discovered who design was for, and it's a critical aspect of that innovation. And besides helping the organizations and the individuals who create the new products, we found out that it's the users and customers. It has to be kept in mind that the customer and user may not be necessarily one and the same. We learned that an example of this situation was prevalent in the medical industry. We delved into an example of how a hospital bed, the user and the customer were separate. The user being the patient that was lying in the bed, and the customer was likely the hospital or healthcare facility that was purchasing the bed. So as a designer, you should consider the patient, making sure they're comfortable and the bed is convenient and has features like adjustable heights, angles, and rails to prevent falls. And you have to consider the customer, who would be the hospital or the healthcare facility, making sure the product was durable, easy to clean, cost-effective, and the features were sturdy, smooth surfaces, and a low-maintenance design. And ultimately, the goal of the design is to create something that is functional and aesthetically pleasing, and also meaningful for the people who get to use it. We then went on to look at why design thinking, and why do we need it? So we found out it is used by design-led companies to gain competitive advantages. And when you achieve innovative and effective solutions with your designs, the experience for your customers are going to be positive. And a positive experience means they're likely to spend and spend again. And also, the customer will likely tell their friends. After the why, we looked at the what. We learned that design thinking is a human-centered approach that emphasizes creative thinking, collaboration, and iteration using scientific process based on research and experimentation to solve these unique problems and generate the solutions that meet the needs of the users while building buy-in and support from your stakeholders. And this is all done through great storytelling. We then went on to look at the factors involved in design thinking and how it focuses on understanding your users' wants and needs. We considered emotional and psychological appeal, assessed economic viability and technical feasibility, and the idea was to find that sweet spot where all these factors overlap to drive the innovation and create those successful products. We then learned that design thinking process was divided into 5 stages: the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test phase. And we looked at these in turn. In the second webinar, we looked at empathy, which we found out is a crucial component of the design thinking process as it forms the first phase of any design project. During the empathize phase of design thinking, the designer aims to understand the user's needs, their wants, their objectives by observing and engaging with them on a psychological and emotional level. This requires setting aside your assumptions and then trying to see the world from the user's perspective while gathering those real insights to inform the design process. Empathy is the ability to understand and experience the feelings, thoughts, and experiences of others without explicit communication. We discovered it's important to understand how the user feels when interacting with your certain product, interface, or design, and how that design evokes certain emotions in them. Empathy also helps designers identify new opportunities for innovation. And then we went on to see, so what is empathetic design? Empathetic design is a user-centered design approach that prioritizes the needs and experiences of your users. And we covered these practices that are employed with empathetic designing. If you want to learn more, you can always go back and have a look at the previous webinar number 2. For those of you pursuing a career in product design, it's important to recognize the significance of empathy, which isn't innate, but can be developed and enhanced through deliberate effort. We learned that in the empathize phase of design thinking, it's important to both observe and engage with your users in order to gain a deeper understanding of their needs. And to do this, there were a variety of techniques that were available that help you build empathy. We delved into observation. We looked at immersion, shadowing. We looked at contextual inquiry. And we also found out the difference between contextual inquiry and shadowing. We delved into diary studies, participatory design, and also immersive experiences. We looked at empathy maps. We covered that an empathy map is a great collaborative visualization that helps us articulate what we know about a particular type of user. It externalizes user knowledge to create a shared understanding of user needs and to facilitate decision-making. To create an empathy map, you need to consider your users in 4 different quadrants: says and does, thinks and feels, sees and hears. And below these 4 quadrants, we listed the user's pains and gains. This was the example of the empathy map we created for a fictitious golfer called Alex. And this possibly could be used to develop a product to help golfers improve their game. You can see what we've attributed to Alex's 4 quadrants, as well as his pains and gains. And we learned that empathy maps could also help you go on to create user personas. We looked at what a user persona is and why do you need one. A user persona is a fabricated depiction of your optimal customer. The persona is typically derived from your research and encompasses the wants, objectives, and observed behavior patterns of your target audience. Understanding your users is crucial when developing a product, whether it's a consumer product, toy, mobile app, or website. And this allows you to create a product that solves their specific problem. And to do this, you need to have a clear problem statement, which requires a deep understanding of your target audience. We covered how to define a persona, and that it typically consists of 4 key components: the heading, demographic information, goals, and objectives. And then the user persona we created for a user named Lily, who was age 6. And you can see from the demographic profile, it comprises of the personal background, educational or professional background, the user environment, and psychographics. This includes gender, ethnicity, education, family status, and persona group. For example, working mother or kindergarten child in this instance. Of professional background, which could include job occupation, income level, maybe work experience. We describe the physical, social, and technological context of the user. Then we include the psychographics, which can cover the user's attitudes, interests, their motivations, and their pain points. And then the goals and objectives is the primary motivator that drives the action and answers the questions of what users want to achieve or fulfill by using that product. A scenario at the end is a narrative that depicts how a persona would use your product to accomplish their end goals in a specific context. So it's essentially a day in the life story that describes the when, where, and how a persona interacts with your product. In our 3rd webinar, we covered the define and ideate phases. Product definition is a critical stage in the design thinking process that lays the foundation for the rest of the design and development process. By defining the key features and characteristics of the product and understanding the needs and the desires of its users, you can create products that are more likely to succeed in the marketplace, and deliver value to their customers. We find that the define stage is crucial in design thinking as it enables you to understand the purpose of your project and to set those specific objectives to pursue. By crafting a clear and actionable problem statement, you can guide your ideation process and work towards finding that solution. A problem statement identifies the gap between the current and the desired state of a process or product, representing an unmet user need that can be addressed through a design solution for a positive user experience. Here we find out some tips that helps you to create a strong problem statement. So we always put the users first, keep it broad, and make it manageable. A clear and specific problem statement is critical in guiding the creative problem-solving process towards finding a solution that meets the needs and expectations of the user. Crafting a concise and effective problem statement can be a daunting task, as it requires capturing the multifaceted needs and desires of users in a single actionable statement. So here is a problem statement we created for an example of a kitchen gadget. And we will look at some proven techniques that can assist in this process and aid in distilling complex information into a clear and focused problem statement. We had the 4 W's. To pinpoint the right problem statement, it's crucial to ask the right questions. So once you've got all your findings from the empathize phase in one place, ask yourself the 4 W's. Who, what, where, and why. By considering these 4 W's, you can identify patterns in your user research and get closer to creating a meaningful problem statement. This is the example of the 4 W's technique applied to the problem statement that we saw earlier for the kitchen gadget. Another effective strategy for problem solving and design thinking is the 5 Whys technique. Here's an example of the 5 Whys technique applied to the problem statement for the kitchen gadget, again mentioned earlier. By asking why 5 times, we were able to identify the root cause of the problem and develop a solution to address it. Once we completed this defined phase, we moved on to the ideation phase. And the ideation phase is an important part of the design thinking process where a team generates a large number of ideas to solve a specific problem or challenge. There are many ideation techniques such as brainstorming, mind mapping, and sketching that can be used to facilitate that process. Ideation is critical in generating innovative solutions and is an essential part of that design thinking process. It's crucial. We want people to think outside the box. Ideation is a safe space for designers to think outside the box and come up with unconventional ideas. The focus is on venturing beyond already been done solutions and accumulating unique perspectives and creativity from different people to ultimately innovate in ways that were previously thought impossible. If done correctly, ideation can lead to a groundbreaking solution for the user's needs. Before diving into ideation techniques, it's crucial to set the right tone for a successful ideation session or workshop. And if you're planning one, there are several things you can do to prepare. In order to foster that creative thinking, it's crucial to step out of your usual setting, and this applies to your team as well. The most successful ideation sessions are those where participants feel comfortable and at ease. Framing questions with the wording, how might we, suggest that the solution is possible, but doesn't give any hints as to what that solution might be, allowing for lateral and innovative thinking. And here we have some how might we questions for that previous kitchen gadget. Then, once you have everything in place for your ideation session, there's just one thing left to do. Choose which ideation techniques you're going to use. And here we have some of the most common ideation techniques used by designers, which we looked at in turn. Again, if you want to delve deeper into this, you can go and watch our previous webinars. In the 4th webinar, we looked at what defines a prototype and ways to test your product solution. So a prototype is an early version or model of a product, design, or concept that is created to test and validate the ideas, features, functionality, and usability before investing time and money into actually developing that product. We use it to gather feedback and insights from users, stakeholders, and designers that can be used to refine and improve that design, reducing the risk of cost errors and inefficiencies in the final product. We try to get across that prototyping is an extremely valuable step in the design thinking process. Prototyping is important for a number of reasons, and We covered why these reasons are critical for creating successful products. It helps to ensure that the final product meets your users' needs, is user-friendly, and functions as intended. We looked at the different types of prototypes, and they can be typically categorized as either low fidelity or high fidelity, depending on the level of complexity. Fidelity refers to how closely the prototype resembles the final product, whether it's true-to-life representation or a simplified preliminary model. A rule of thumb for low fidelity prototypes is to focus on speed and simplicity over detail and accuracy. And here we have examples of low fidelity prototypes. A high fidelity prototype is a more detailed and functional representation of a designer product that more closely resembles the final product. In this example, a high fidelity prototype for the mobile app is a fully functional version of the app with realistic graphics, animations, and user interface elements. And the high fidelity physical prototype is likely to be fully functional, allowing users to test its performance, ergonomics, and usability. The goal of the high fidelity physical prototype is for you to create a final product that closely resembles that actual finished product. And as I said, allows for rigorous testing and refinement before going into production. Once you have a clear understanding of what prototyping is, its significance in the design process, and the various types of prototypes available, it's time to put this knowledge into practice and create your own prototype. And here are some pointers that will help you along the way. After you've created your prototype, it's time to test it. User testing is the process of gathering feedback from representative users to evaluate your product or service. It involves recruiting participants, having them perform tasks, and observing their feedback and behavior. Data collected is analyzed to make design decisions and improvements. User testing provides insights for a better user experience, higher satisfaction, and increased business success. So, why is the testing phase crucial? User testing is conducted for several reasons, and here we have 5 of the key reasons. And this can lead to a better product or service that helps it stand out in the market. When should you carry out testing? User testing should be carried out throughout the design process, from the early stages of conceptualization right through to the final stages of development. Always be sure to test early and test often. In the 4th webinar, we then gave you an example of key testing moments if you were designing a new office chair. Now we're going to take a look at some of those testing methods. There are various methods of user testing that can be used depending on the stage of the design process, the type of product or your service, and the research goals. And here we list some of the most common methods of user testing, which again, we covered in depth in the 4th webinar. We then give you a guide for carrying out that user testing. In the 5th webinar, we covered the iterative process, also known as iterative design or iterative development, which refers to a cyclical and incremental approach to product development or problem solving. It involves repeatedly refining and improving a product or solution through a series of iterations, which follow by feedback, evaluation, and adjustments based on the results obtained. We saw that the iterative process typically involves the following steps: design or development, testing or evaluation, analysis, and then adjustments or refinements. And then you go on to repeat that process by creating an updated version of your product or solution, and then subjecting it to further testing, evaluation, and refinement. This cycle of design, test, analyze, and adjust is repeated multiple times until the desired level of quality, functionality, or usability is achieved. And then we covered how this relates to the previous image of the design thinking process that you've seen, which is this one. And if you remember, after you've completed your testing, then you analyze, and it's the result of this analysis that leads you to the area where refinement needs to occur. and this could be anywhere within the design thinking process. The process that returns you to the test stage is collectively referred to as design in the iterative process. Then we looked at whether there were alternatives to the iterative process. We compared the iterative with the waterfall process, and we saw that the iterative process was incremental, flexible, and the risk-managed approach that emphasized continuous feedback loops with users and stakeholders. In contrast, the waterfall process is linear, less flexible, feedback-poor approach that completes each stage before moving on to the next one. And it may have shorter upfront planning time, but may lead to longer development cycles, higher costs, and possibly higher risk exposure if issues are identified later in the process. Then we gave you an example of a product created with the waterfall process, which was a space shuttle, reusable spacecraft used by NASA for space missions. This program was launched in the 1970s and eventually retired in 2011. We looked at the other alternative to the iterative process, which is the incremental process, and it's a product development. The incremental process in product development refers to a step-by-step approach where a product is improved or extended iteratively through a series of small incremental changes or updates. And we looked at the two processes together. Incremental development and iterative development are related, but they have some differences. In each approach, the incremental development is an approach where a product is developed in small, manageable increments or pieces, and each increment is developed and delivered separately, and then new increments are built upon the previous increments. In contrast, the iterative development is an approach where development cycles are repeated, with each cycle involving full or partial development, testing, and feedback loop. And we covered how the comparative processes played out using the creation of the Mona Lisa painting. And briefly, these are the set of benefits we covered that using an iterative process in product development can have. We looked at continuous improvement, where the iterative process allows for ongoing improvement of a product or solution through a cyclical feedback loop. Flexibility and adaptability, where the iterative process enables teams to be flexible and adaptable in response to changing requirements. The iterative process allows for development of initial version or prototype of the product or solution to be released earlier. Through early issue identification and resolution, it helps to reduce costs and risks. The iterative process is centered on our users, incorporating their continuous feedback and evaluation. Incorporating feedback is a collaborative process that involves listening to different perspectives and incorporating diverse ideas. It includes ongoing testing, evaluation, and refinement, which helps ensure that the product or solution meets the desired level of quality and performance. And then design is often created with specific business objectives in mind, such as increasing conversions, improving customer engagement, or enhancing that brand perception. Then iterating on the design and incorporating feedback is a critical process in any creative endeavor, whether it's designing a product, building a website, creating a piece of art, or developing a software application. And there are several methods that designers use to evaluate and refine design, and some common methods include usability testing, which involves observing real users as they interact with the design to identify any usability issues, challenges, or areas of improvement. There was remote testing, using products, prototypes, or live products, expert review, also known as heuristic evaluation, which involve experienced designers or usability experts evaluate your design against a set of predefined principles, gathering feedback from stakeholders, including clients, team members, and other relevant parties. A/B testing, which involves testing multiple versions of design or feature with real users to compare their performance and effectiveness. Cognitive walkthrough involves imagining and simulating how users would interact with the design and identifying potential usability issues or challenges. Analyzing data from user interactions, such as website analytics, heat maps, or user behavior tracking. The choice of methods will depend on specific context, goals, and resources available. It's often beneficial to use a combination of methods to gather comprehensive feedback and insights for effective design refinement. Now let us go through the process for a product. Here's an empathy map for Sarah, an eco-conscious home cook we are targeting to be a customer for a kitchen waste composter. Now, I want everybody to put into the chat things that you think Sarah will think and feel. So if you can put in the chat some things you think that Sarah will think and feel. Hate waste, okay, yeah. Anybody else? Appetite for waste? Okay, yeah. Short of time. Okay, okay. Okay, let's have a look. So these are some of the thinks and feels that I've listed for Sarah. Now, how about what she sees? How about what Sarah sees? Anything that you think that Sarah... Okay, local produce. Good one. Things that Sarah would see around her that may contribute to her wanting to get a kitchen waste composter. Any ideas? Supermarket detritus, yeah, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. Wasted in the fridge, yeah, yeah, all good ones. Look at that, yeah, they're all there. Okay, how about what she hears? So for this empathy map, what do you think things that Sarah would hear? Okay, fast food mess. Special sell-by date offers. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Anything else that think that Sarah would hear that would compel her to buy a food waste compactor or composter, sorry? Read your programs on carbon footprints, yep, yep. Or it smells of food gone off. Certainly. Okay, let's have a look. So yes, you know, some of your suggestions are definitely there. Now, things that Sarah says and does. So Can you think of anything that? Okay, yeah, she sees food or hears food banks, or visits food banks, maybe. Reads ingredients. Okay. Yeah. Customer reviews and ratings. Yeah, definitely. Okay, buys free range when possible. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. Spots food aimed at intolerances. Okay. Okay. All right. I see. What have I got for this one? So there's the various ones that she says and does. Okay. What about her pains and gains? Things that you think for Sarah. What would her pains and gains be? And remember, just because something appeared in another section doesn't mean it can't appear in this section. So any pains and gains for Sarah? Air miles for ingredients. Okay, okay. That's a good one. It's a new one on me. I would like to gain some air miles for ingredients. Or certainly compel me to buy a product. Anything else? Anything else? Pains and gains. Expense for organic. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, that is certainly one of the pains of buying organic. Space in the fridge for fresh vegetables. Okay, okay, these are good, all good suggestions. Okay, these are things that I've suggested for listing for pains and gains. So great job, guys. So by understanding the perspectives and motivations of our potential users through this empathy map, we can design a kitchen waste composter that aligns with the needs and values of our target customers. So making composting kitchen waste a more convenient and suitable option for them. Okay. And we're going to go on to a user persona. So here's a user persona I've created for Sarah, the eco-conscious home cook. And as you see the heading, Sarah, age 35. She's in an urban area. She's married with 2 young children. She has an occupation as a graphic designer. And you can see the challenges that Sarah may face. And her values are the eco-conscious home cook. We show her level of technology, and her goals and objectives are to reduce that food waste, simplify the waste management, and promote sustainability. And we have the scenario of Sarah being an avid home cook who enjoys preparing meals from scratch using fresh produce. Like you said, she likes to buy organic. And by using this user persona as a reference, we can design a kitchen waste composter product that caters to Sarah's needs, her preferences and values, and provides her with a solution that helps her achieve her goals of reducing food waste and promoting sustainability in her everyday life. Here are the 4 W's that we have. We discussed this earlier for the problem statement. Who? The urban households, or eco-conscious and seek to reduce their environmental footprint. The what? providing an easy-to-use and odor-free kitchen waste composter that helps reduce food waste, simplify that waste management, and create nutrient-rich compost for their gardens. Where in the home, particularly in the urban areas where space is limited and traditional composting options may not be feasible, and why there's a growing need for convenient and efficient solution to manage that kitchen waste and promote that sustainable living. And here's the problem statement that we created for that kitchen waste composter. So as urban households become increasingly eco-conscious, seek to reduce environmental footprint, there's need for convenient and efficient solution to manage that kitchen waste, promote that sustainable living, have an odor-free composting solution that reduces the food waste, simplifies management, and create nutrient-rich compost for their gardens. Here, we went on to apply the 5 whys to that problem statement for that kitchen waste composter in the previous slide. So we have why do the urban households seek to reduce their environmental footprint? And then we gave a reason. Why there's need for convenient and efficient solution to manage that kitchen waste? Then we gave a reason. Why is the kitchen waste composter a solution for managing food waste? Again, we went on to give our solution. Why should the kitchen waste composter be easy to use and odor free? And then why is it important for the kitchen waste composter to align with users' sustainability values? And by asking why these multiple times, we understand the underlying motivations and needs behind the problem statement and the proposed solution, which can help guide the development and design of the kitchen waste composter to better meet the user's needs. And now we've gone through our definition, let's move on to ideation. So here we have some how might we questions, and these are used to inspire creative thinking and generate potential solutions. So can anyone think of any how might we questions? I've given you an example, so type it in the chat, any how might we questions. Yeah. How might we fit it under the sink? It's a good one. Anybody else? Any other how might we questions? How might we see what already exists? Okay, yep, that's a good one. Okay, how might we give it bespoke bags? Okay, we'll take one more. Will it stink up the kitchen? Well, that's not quite a how might we question, because at this stage we're not looking at the problems, we're looking at solutions. So that could be rephrased as how might we prevent it from stinking up the kitchen? Ah, there we go. Excellent. You're okay. How might we add charcoal filters? That's brilliant. Brilliant. Someone's already thinking ahead. Okay. So here we have some examples of how might we questions. So you see there we've how might we incorporate odor control technology? So if we look at that, and here we have another few examples of how might we. And at the end, how might we develop a waste composter that is affordable, accessible, and inclusive, catering to different budgets, lifestyles, and cultural practices? So these how might we questions can serve as prompts for our brainstorming and innovation, encouraging exploration of different ideas and approaches to address the challenges and opportunities associated with a kitchen waste composter. So in this instance, we're going to look at mind mapping. So if you remember, we started with the keywords for the problem in the center and add words that relate around it. So we'll start with a kitchen waste composter. And, can we think of any words that would relate to a kitchen waste composter? So put them into the chat. Consider words relating to waste reduction and management, composting and soil health, sustainability and environmental impact, convenience and functionality, and maybe related appliances. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to stick some words down that we could use for mind mapping around the kitchen waste composter. Will it compact the food? Yeah. Can we make it? Okay. Can we make it quiet? Certainly. How might we make it user friendly? Quiet. What to omit from compost? Okay. What to omit from compost? How might we educate the users on what to put into the compost? Okay, so mind mapping words, any words that you can think of that would relate to the kitchen waste composter to help us think about ways that we will solve it. Rats, okay, that's an interesting one. Certainly. An inner chamber to cut down on odors and spills. Okay, odors, spills. Those words we could stick into our mind map. Give you another minute. All we need is just single words or set 2 or 3 words that you'd put down on a mind map. Fermentation, okay, yeah. Combined with sewage waste. Not too sure whether you'd want sewage waste in your composter, but maybe we'll not rule it out, so we can put down sewage. Yes, I think we had rats earlier on, so rats are certainly one of the problems. So, and how do we deter rats? What we do is we make sure that there's no foul odors to encourage them. Okay, well, here we have a plethora of words that we'd use to mind map if we're going to create our kitchen waste composter. So all these would go on to help us develop our solution. We have things that relate to waste reduction, management, the compost, soil health, areas in sustainability and environmental impact, and convenience and functionality. And we also look at related appliances that, things that we could look at to help us determine how we go about creating this. So next, after the ideation, move on to prototyping. And these, as covered earlier, are the reasons that we prototype. So first, what is needed to compost? So in order to create a composter, we need to know how to do it. And composting requires 4 significant ingredients to work adequately. We need carbon, which is brown materials like dry leaves. We need nitrogen, which is the fruit and vegetables, the waste that we put into it, not these nicely fresh fruit and vegetables that we have here, but clearly the offcuts, the peels, the bits that we don't use. We need oxygen, and that's for oxidizing the carbon materials. And then we need water, and that adds moisture to the compost matter for better aerobic fertilization. And we're not going to go into too much details of how to compost, but depending on the materials and conditions in a compost heap, it can take a little while, up to over a year, to deliver fertilizer. And fertilizer is commonly prepared for use in 3 to 6 months, but given ordinary turning, satisfactory dampness, and a decent blend of materials with day-by-day turnings and exceedingly degradable material, the composting time can be decreased to less than a month. So with this in mind, our prototype could aim to achieve composting in around a month. So things we have to look for needing to compost, we need to make it work. So we know that composting will happen almost by itself. Then we build and feed that compost, so significant undertaking is mixing the materials. Whys and whens of turning, so it provides the compost with fresh air. So as we said, the oxygen, by turning the material, we let oxygen get to all the compost. And then to speed the process, mostly the more often the materials are turned, the quicker it manures. And then to add moisture, we turn the heaps while including water over and over, wet, and after that, turn the material. So do we have any ideas of what materials we could use to build a prototype? Any ideas? I'll give you quick 30 seconds. Aware that we're running out of time here. 30 seconds. Steel, hardwood. Okay. If we're going to build a prototype, if you're going to build a prototype, maybe things that you could gather that are readily available to create your prototype. So if you're going to create a composter, you probably need a container. So, you know, if you can think of a easily, quickly available container. There we go, plastic bin, excellent. Excellent. And if you want to turn the material over, something that you could use to turn the material over, you could do it manually, but maybe the fact that we need to do this often, that would be too time consuming. So something we could use to turn that material. Oh, there we go. Excellent, 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 excellent. We're all wonderful designers here on the same page. So you could likely start with a bucket and a motor mechanism to act as a stir. So as you mentioned, a drill with a paddle would work perfectly well. And then a heating element. Compost likes to be warm. And then maybe you could add water manually. So you could say come in and pour in some water twice a day. So can you think, would you use the iterative, the waterfall, or the incremental process for developing this product? So iterative, waterfall, or incremental process for developing this product. Done with slightly over time, so I'll give you 20 seconds. Iterative, okay. Anyone who doesn't think the iterative process would be used? Okay, well, yeah, there we go. It's the iterative process. You are correct. So the idea is to understand the process and make it repeatable. And you will do this through iterations. You'll add features, probably increase the convenience as you go. You'll develop your product. You've developed the container that it's in, the mechanism, and the idea is to understand the process of composting, the ingredients that would go into it. You'd probably monitor the temperature and also the amount of water that you're putting into it. Over time, what you want to do is you test, get your results, get your feedback as you go, iterate, and you'd go on to develop your product that way. You'd probably then add your filters in the top of your bucket, and make sure you don't have any smells or odors. And again, you iterate, you test, and you test. So, any questions? Any questions at all that we have? Put them into the chat. Put them into the chat. Any questions at all?
Oh, Carlos, doesn't look as if there's any questions.
Oh, okay. Oh, here we go. I was thinking I've described it so wonderfully that everybody's all set to go out and make their own kitchen composter. And trust me, there's a gap in the market. There's a gap in the market. So if you feel like doing it, go for it. Or at least one that actually composts the material and doesn't just dehydrate it.
Oh, I thought Joanna had a question there. It looked as if she
Yeah,
was
she's
typing in.
still typing away, so it's a
And
long one.
Anne-Marie seems to be
Okay,
typing in the
typing
question as well.
Okay, brilliant. Yes, yeah. Anything at all that you could use to stir that material up. Well, yes, that is true. Artists don't work like that. We simply used that as a way to describe the two processes. The artists, if we think of the iterative process, artists actually do use the iterative process. Again, if you go back to that webinar, I think we showed you an image of some art whereby there was the artist's previous iteration whereby they sketched the setting that they were going to do prior to going on to create that art. Maybe if you're doing scenery art or live art, you would just dive in and paint what you see. But yeah, that was just to give an impression of the two processes. What would be a more accurate example then? Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't think.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Carlos. I will drop my email into the chat. If there's any more questions or comments, please do get in contact with myself. And I'll certainly pass on your questions to Carlos. Thank you all very much for your time. And do have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.